Welcome to The Explainer. For as long as we've been around, we've been trying to make sense of the world, to organize it. But how in the world do you draw a map for millions and millions of different living things? Well, today we're jumping into the brilliant system that finally brought some order to the beautiful chaos of biology, the five-kingdom classification.
For the longest time, our map of life was, well, let's just say it was simple. Really simple. If it was green and stayed put, it was a plant. If it moved around and ate stuff, it was an animal. Easy, right? It seemed neat and tidy, but the closer we looked, the more questions we had.
And believe me, this urge to classify things is nothing new. We've been grouping organisms for thousands of years, mostly based on what was useful to us, for food or clothes or shelter. The ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle gave it one of the first real scientific shots. He sorted plants into trees, shrubs, or herbs. And animals? He just checked if they had red blood or not. It was a start for sure, but as we were about to find out, nature is way more complicated than that.
Now, the map that really stuck around for centuries, the one formalized around the time of the great classifier Linnaeus, held onto that super simple two-kingdom idea. But here's the thing, that map had some huge blank spots, and a lot of territories where things just didn't seem to belong.
Okay, let's really dig into this old system. On the surface, it makes sense. Kingdom Plantae over here, Kingdom Animalia over there. But look closer at what got stuffed into the plant box. Not just flowers and trees, but also fungi, like mushrooms, and even tiny little bacteria. I mean, the system was basically ignoring some absolutely massive, fundamental differences between these organisms.
And this is where it all starts to fall apart. You've got all these biological misfits with no real home. Fungi, for instance, were called plants, but they don't make their own food from sunlight, they absorb it, kind of like animals do. Bacteria got thrown in with oak trees, even though their cells are way simpler. They don't even have a nucleus. And then you have these bizarre little creatures like Euglena, which acts like a plant one minute and an animal the next. The old map was, to put it mildly, broken. So it became painfully obvious that just looking at what something looked like on the outside wasn't going to cut it. To draw a better, more accurate map of life, scientists realized they had to go deeper. They needed to look at how organisms were built on the inside, at the cellular level, and how they actually made a living.
And this, my friends, brings us to the breakthrough, the moment that completely redrew our understanding of the living world. This wasn't just a small correction, this was a full-blown revolution in biology.
So, in 1969, an American biologist named R.H. Whitaker comes along and basically says, hey everybody, we've been asking the wrong questions. He argued that we needed to stop focusing just on appearances and start classifying life based on more fundamental criteria. He wanted to know, how is it built and how does it survive? So what were his new rules of the road? It really boiled down to three key questions. First, cell structure. Is the cell simple, what we call prokaryotic with no nucleus? Or is it complex and eukaryotic with a nucleus? Second, body organization. Are we talking about a single-celled organism or a complex creature made of many cells? And third, the big one, mode of nutrition. Does it make its own food, like a plant, an autotroph, or does it have to get its food from someone else, a heterotroph?
And boom! Take a look at this table. This is the beautiful result. When you apply those three simple rules, you get 5 clear, distinct kingdoms. You've got Monera for all the simple prokaryotes, Protista for the single-celled eukaryotes, and then the 3 big multicellular kingdoms, all separated by how they eat. Fungi, the decomposers, Plantae, the producers, and Animalia, the consumers. All of a sudden, everything just fit. All right, let's take a quick tour of these new territories on our map of life. We'll start with the oldest and simplest inhabitants on the planet.
First up is Kingdom Monera. This kingdom is made up entirely of bacteria and their close relatives. These guys are the true ancient survivors of our planet. They're simple, single-celled organisms without a nucleus. But don't let that simplicity fool you for a second. They are literally everywhere, and they have more ways of making a living, more metabolic diversity than any other group on Earth.
Next up, we have Kingdom Protista. Honestly, the best way to think of this one is like biology's miscellaneous drawer. You know, that drawer in your kitchen where you put all the stuff that doesn't really belong anywhere else? That's Protista. It's a catch-all kingdom for single-celled eukaryotes that aren't quite plants, animals, or fungi. It's a wildly diverse group, and it's super important because it's the evolutionary bridge to all other complex life. Okay, now we move on to the 3 big kingdoms of complex, multicellular life, starting with the one that finally got its own proper home, fungi. These are nature's great recyclers.
From the mushrooms you see in the forest to the mold on a piece of bread, these guys are essential. They break down dead material, and their cell walls aren't made of the same stuff as plants. They're made of a tough material called chitin.
Then, of course, we have Kingdom Plantae, the incredible producers of the world. We're talking about all the multicellular, eukaryotic organisms we know and love: mosses, ferns, flowers, and giant trees. Through the absolute magic of photosynthesis, they turn sunlight into energy, and they form the base of pretty much every food web on land.
And finally, we arrive at our home kingdom, Animalia. Yep, that's us. We are the consumers. From the tiniest insect to the biggest blue whale, animals are multicellular eukaryotes that have to eat other organisms to get energy. And what really sets us apart? Well, we can move. And our cells don't have those rigid walls that plants and fungi do, which gives us all kinds of flexibility.
So when you put these three big, complex kingdoms side by side, you can really see the genius of Whitaker's thinking. It all comes down to nutrition. You've got the fungi, which absorb food, you've got the plantae, which make food, and you've got the animalia, which ingest food. Three totally different, totally brilliant strategies for thriving on planet Earth.
Okay, so now we have this fantastic, logical, five-kingdom map. Everything has its place, our work here is done, right? Well, not exactly. Nature, as it turns out, always has a few more curveballs to throw at us.
The short answer is a big nope. There are some very strange, very important biological entities that don't fit into any of the five kingdoms. Why? Because they make us question what it even means to be alive.
First up, let's talk about viruses. These things are basically just a piece of genetic code, DNA or RNA wrapped up in a little protein jacket. That's it. Outside of a living cell, they're completely inert. They can't do anything. They have to hijack a host cell to make copies of themselves. So, are they living or not? The debate is still raging.
And if you thought viruses were stripped down, meet viroids. These things are even simpler. A viroid is just a tiny, naked loop of RNA. No protein coat, nothing else. Just this little bit of genetic material, and yet it's powerful enough to cause major diseases in plants. Incredible.
And now for the weirdest of them all, prions. Get this, these are infectious agents made of protein. That's it. No DNA, no RNA. Just a rogue, misfolded protein that can cause other normal proteins in the brain to misfold too, leading to horrible diseases like mad cow disease.
So the big takeaway here is that Whitaker's five-kingdom map is a map for cellular life. These oddballs, viruses, viroids, and prions, are acellular. They don't have cells. They exist in this strange gray zone, completely off the map, reminding us that even our best models have uncharted territory.
And that brings us to a final, really fascinating question. The old two-kingdom map lasted for centuries. Whitaker's five-kingdom map has been our guide for over 50 years now. But science never, ever stands still. With new genetic tools giving us an even deeper look at the tree of life, how will our map change next? It's just a thrilling reminder that in science, the journey of discovery is never, ever over.